Hello and welcome to HOYA Vision Talks, our quarterly podcast where we meet bold thinkers, purpose-driven leaders, and inspiring voices who are shaping the future. I'm your host today. My name is Pamela, and today's episode is one I've been truly looking forward to. We are about to take a journey beyond borders and beyond boundaries with a guest who knows exactly what it means to think big, look far, and lead with purpose. Joining me today is Monica Politano, a remarkable voice from one of the most inspiring organizations on Earth and beyond, the European Space Agency, also known as ECA. Monica is more than a leader. She's a bridge builder between science and society, a fierce advocate for storytelling, innovation, and someone who understands the power of purpose in navigating complexity. In today's conversation, we will explore how ESA creates its narrative in a world filled with noise, how purpose acts as a compass in both space and strategy, and what all of us across industry can learn from how the space sector looks at progress, collaboration, and long-term thinking. So whether we are leading a brand, driving transformation, or just looking for a fresh perspective in leadership, I invite you to lean in. Monica? Welcome to HOYA Visionary Talks. It's truly a pleasure to have you with us. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself first and a bit about your journey, what brought you to the European Space Agency, and what has kept you inspired throughout your career?
First of all, thanks for inviting. It's really a pleasure for me to be here. We are used to speak on stage, but only on boring nerd type technical things. So this is something new for me. Space. Well, actually for me, deciding to become an engineer was a bit random. On that day, I wanted to become a lawyer, but faculty was closed. So no, the truth is that I was looking for something challenging. And when you finish your senior school, you don't know what you're heading for. And engineering looked at the time challenging enough. But then as soon as I started as an aeronautic engineer, I discovered that the possibility was to drift towards space. And that was really love at first sight. So I discovered a passion. And then arriving to ESA is for us like the arrival point. You start working in an industry that is working with space, and then ESA, like NASA for US, is the arrival point for us. And basically the short answer is passion, just passion.
Fantastic. I think that many of us actually can resonate with the word passion as well. So ESA is often seen as a beacon of innovation. And what do you think makes it a unique place to work, especially as a woman in a STEM leadership role?
In general, there is no perfect place, I believe, and it's important to capture this, in particular for a young professional, because otherwise the expectations, they might become too high. On the other end, it's also somehow good news to know that there is no perfect place, because there is no real bad place. ESA, in this respect, is for us in love with space, is the place to be, is the place where we can find always room to propose our ideas and to find a project that fits us. Being a woman in this environment is not easy because you can work in space, in engineering in general. It's unusual still, but it's happening more and more. I'm very happy of this. On the other end, when you have to think moving abroad, as ESA entailed and is entailing for most of us, because we have many sites, but mostly, one has to think to take the luggage and move. Then it's difficult for a woman because our normal traditional family type is sized and settled on the choices of the husband, where his job is going to, and if his job allows to, afford some type of decisions. So some women don't come just because if they are senior enough, because they have to move their families. And this is still a hurdle. But that's also why we are starting from younger generation. It's not a solution if you want to rebalance a bit the percentage of senior women in managerial position. But on the other end, it's the only way probably to populate from the beginning the new generation that could be balanced in terms of gender and also other type of minority.
Fantastic. So obviously it's from the early age that you shape your career around, right? Especially for difficult choices as such. Thank you. We switched topic, and there is one topic, and I'm looking at one person here next to me. It's called sustainability. And in HOYA, we have a sustainability program which is called One Vision, and is built on the belief that long-term value comes from acting responsibility today. It's our foundations and for how we think about innovation, circularity, inclusion, impact across the entire eye care system. So now we are thinking about space, obviously with you, and it might feel distant from everyday life, but sustainability, we guess, is just a critical up in the space, and that is obviously as it is here. So Monica, can you share how EZA incorporates sustainability into the operation, from mission planning to resource use, a long-term planetary responsibility, and how do those space-driven sustainability principles inspire action back here on Earth? Long question.
This is a very good and big question. We started working on the topic more than 20 years ago. I was one of those, for example, just for personal interest within ESA, actively looking for things to do. In the beginning, I think the journey and what I saw within ESA, it's also what happened probably in other high-tech fields like automotive, for example, aeronautics. Normally, what you start doing is to raise concern, and it's also a generational problem. Managers arrived in ESA between the 80s and 2000. They were not aware of this issue because it was not an issue at the time so popular in the normal world. So we grew into this, and the first thing we did was to learn how to assess our footprint. And in principle, space activity, they are so small with respect to terrestrial activities that we had, I think we probably will still have, a sort of legal exemption for some, the usage of, non-lead-free soldering, for example, materials that are already banned on Earth. But still, we thought that was important to assess this. So we started doing this that is called LCAs, life cycle analysis, and you can also buy a car, and you will see in the data sheet that probably they have done it. And then it was the consequence was sort of twofold. On one end, we started thinking of what we can do on our own. So like fostering in our establishment the use of carpooling rather than use of electric car, whatever, just with small measures. We even developed internally with our knowledge a sort of autonomous, autonomous minibus that could move people around in the establishment. Not needed, but it was, a step ahead. And then more concretely, in the last 10 years, I've seen really quite some goodwill in changing the way we really do space from a technical and strategic point of view. We went from having no rules somehow, you launch something and then who cares? And the problem of sustainability is twofold for us. On one end, if we pollute, let's say, in a simple sense, during our preparation, and then what we do with the asset that we are launching in space. And for us, this is the real hustle, because we potentially create what we call debris, basically flying garbage. But the thing to do is not to stop doing what human beings normally do. That's to say, to advance, to create, and to develop technology. The thing to do is to see what we do, see the consequences, and do better. So that's what we decided to do. And we have imposed ourselves. It's a sort of mandatory recommendation that we are doing together with other space agencies all over the world. So we try to recommend what to do. And what to do is, I don't know, you launch a satellite, for example, when you reach the end of life and the satellite might die and become then garbage. We have to foresee in advance that either the satellite is pushed towards outer space, that for the moment is a solution, or re-enter Earth in some way. And even re-entering Earth, it has to be done without falling on the head of people, without increasing by burning, for example, the ozone hole. There are a number of conditions. So basically what we did, we used our technical knowledge applied to this problem as if this were a normal problem to solve. And we have identified a number of measures that are expected to heavily decrease the effect in the future. And we also learn that this is a non-ending process and that there will be, in the very future, this is probably inspiring also for the audience, what we dream of at the moment is just a science fiction type of dream, is to have a circular economy, you mentioned it. So to be able to, the cradle-to-cradle principle, to recover debris in space, process them somehow. At the moment it looks impossible, and then use this as raw material to create new things in orbit. This is ideally what we should long for. We don't know whether it's technically or financially sustainable, but you have to have this type of vision, I think.
Great. So it's really interesting how you're also looking into more long-term environment issue and impact beyond Earth, obviously. Thank you. And what lesson from the space sector can companies on Earth, so here close by, take when thinking about their own sustainability agendas, for example? And as I said, for us, it's very at the heart of everything that we're doing in multiple ways. So how can we inspire ourselves?
I think we are all at the same level in the sense that I see, at least from my point of view, that high tech has been very active already together with us in the last 20 years. And we are sort of iteratively checking, one upon the others. Some things might come from space as an example. Other things we learn from Earth. So I think everybody is at the moment quite on the right track. No real big lessons to be taken. If you want, it's just that the real lesson is, even in such a small world, which is the space world, where you think to be on Mars rather than on Earth, you might still try to improve and ask yourself if you are really covering your traces somehow.
Yeah. Thank you. Changing subject, you've spoken about the importance of diversity in shaping the future and how actually we are inspiring the younger generation of space exploration, for example. So why is diversity and inclusion crucial in a sector like Eurospace?
I always ask this myself, being part of one of the possible minorities. And I normally find myself like the only woman around, table. However, I have to trust what experts say, and I have read about many, from expert reports where they say that it's been actually proven that having a composite team in any sense, culturally, from nationality, experience, background, is always enriching. And maybe the first 10 minutes you're talking to someone, you think, would be better to have someone the same of me so we would understand each other easily. And this is true. But if you give it a bit more time, you see that having someone who is totally coming from a completely different environment is giving you, in particular in difficult situations, a new perspective, that's what you need in order to find the real good solution. And space is like this. Space is a harsh environment. Space is pushing us to develop things that will work far from our control in a blind spot. And often we are, and money is never enough, so you never have enough resources. So we always find ourselves in situations in which we need a magic solution. And the more we have diverse contribution, I see the better it is and more probable to find quickly the solution.
Super. It's very confrontational. And I think it's very interesting because we often feel, in a company like HOYA, but in any company, that the problem that we're facing is only for us, but effectively it's cross boundaries, right? So how does ECA encourage, and you've discussed about that, but how can we encourage more young women, especially at the early age, to underrepresented groups to enter STM careers as such?
Well,
it's a
actually,
million dollar question.
We have a formal recommendation. So when we issue our positions, there's always an indication of sort of formal recommendation for underrepresented countries. We have a number of type of inclusion we have to consider. On one end, we have something which is not that much known on terrestrial applications, which is geographical return. So we are paid, we are supported by more than 25 member states. So we think that it's important and essential to have representatives from all of these countries in terms of workforce, even if we work independently from our original countries, but still it's good to have all of them represented. So this is the first banding thing. For gender, we decided not to have quotas, because in the end, technical excellence has to be the leading point. So we cannot, it's already something to look at passports, so you cannot add other constraints. But what we do, we really encourage contact with young people. So happening events like this one, they are very much encouraged, and other colleagues, they are doing the same with ad hoc outreach. We use more and more modern, let's say, media, social, opportunities like LinkedIn or even Facebook, whatever is the personal social community that everybody is in contact with. And then it's a lot still relying upon word of mouth. So whenever we, in a conference, we meet companies and the universities, we always stimulate them to look into what we do. However, one thing has to be said. We encourage young people to come to ESA, stay, learn, but then get back to the real world, have an experience in normal industries or universities, and potentially come back later. This because we need senior people to define strategies, but also because it's important to populate our industries, because that's where things are really done. And our function as space agencies, NASA, JAXA, ESA, whatever is the specific agency, has to be to share the knowledge across multiple organizations, states, etc., but not to somehow take resources from industry. Industry is the place where you create jobs, you create richness, and you really create goods. So that's where I think young people should head to in their first part of a career.
Wow. This I didn't expect. And I think it's very inspirational for a company that invests so much resource and time and effort to actually reopen up the world, right, to the younger employee. So very interesting for me. Thank you. So talking about leadership and inspiration, what's one leadership lesson you've learned from working in such a high stakes and high precision environment? Something that you can share.
One could figure a leader as someone who is telling others what to do. And okay, this is part of the job, true, because you have to, in the end, you're bearing the responsibility, so one has to decide. On the other end, what I learned in particular, now I'm managing a team, but let's say more of people voluntarily working with me. So I don't have to care about their career. So it's very easy. But in the past, when I had such a type of problem, opportunity, one thing I learned was that you really have to understand the profile of the people working with you. And they will probably not be the same of you. And you don't, for this reason, have to dislike them. So, for example, I'm the type of person who can be inspirational, could think of big ideas, but then I'm a very bad finisher. If you tell me to look after all the small things to be completed, I do it, but it really requires me 10 times the effort there with respect to someone else. Or someone else instead might enjoy doing small things, being told every day the list of things to be done, and being given, even necessitating to be given a specific plan. Like, I don't know, my kids, when they wake up in the morning, say, can you tell me all the things we're going to do today? I don't need this, but I see that someone might. So I think what really makes a manager is not really taking the big decisions in a project, but is managing the people. And sometimes we maybe forget that manager is human.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any particular mission or project that you're most proud of? And if you can tell us why.
Well, actually, two. One was the last big project I was in when I was in industry. That was Rosetta. Maybe someone has heard about this. Was the comet catcher, where my company at the time was working on both the orbiting and the lander satellite, and I worked on the drill. So really going to drill material out of the comet, and that was nice because it was super challenging, very international project, and for the first time on our side, a girl team. So that was very nice. And then another project I was in at ESA, my first project in the telecommunication group, where I had very little money in terms of project budget, no secured manpower, but I still managed with the way of working and the topic to excite somehow the experts that I needed in order to run internal experts. And in the end, I found myself with almost 15 experts who, even if they didn't have any official commitment to give priority to my project, they were really doing their best and working in the weekend just to support our small project. And why? Not only for me, but because they saw that they could really make a difference with respect to the companies we were working in with some sort of guidance. And you have to understand which are the leverage you can use when you need to move a team.
Yeah, thank you. So looking ahead, what do you think is the most exciting opportunity in the space sector over the next decade? If you can share anything.
Well, we are looking on one end to go very far away, and ESA, NASA, JAXA, the big agencies, they need more and more to work together despite the political events. If they are planning to be, I don't know, on Mars or on other planets. So this is one longer term thing. But this is so much depending on political events that you can never really plan. On the shorter term, let's say the next decade, I think the project that or the initiative, let's say it's not yet a project, that I'm leading is one of the ones I like most is called Intelligent System, and is on advanced autonomy. So what we're trying to do is a little bit what car manufacturers are trying to do now for the last 15 years. That's to say, to create autonomous vehicle. But autonomous vehicle on Earth is something where you can put your hands on. While if we plan to do something like this, having a number of satellites, maybe thousands of satellites flying in space, we really have to be sure that they're working properly and they're not, crashing bumping one onto the other or whatever. And the exciting thing as an engineer is to think of somehow create a big brain that is capable, it's like your baby, is capable then to take its way and work autonomously after you have properly instructed it.
Wow. That sounds very far away from us, right? In multiple sense. I love how you have touched upon the collaboration. Obviously, collaboration is also very a key pillar, not only for us internally, but also externally with the industry. So industry partners, we have collaboration even with our competitors, with EssilorLuxottica or Zeiss, government, to really influence and drive more and more awareness about high vision care, especially. So it's not only, it's interesting to see that obviously you're collaborating as well with multiple agencies as well. And if you could give us one piece of advice, especially to the young professional passionate that can hear us today, about technology and purpose-driven work, because we are really a purpose-driven organization as such as HOYA, what would that be?
I think to, on one end, never give up in general. But what I think is for a young professional is very important to understand is, and there is no good right or wrong answer, is if they really want to work on a purpose-driven, as you correctly define, job. So like, I really want to do that. I want to choose what I do. Or if they honestly can think of doing it, doesn't matter which job, which is not wrong. It's just a different way of making their choice. Or I want a job that whatever is obliging me to do is more pursuing career. This is a choice to be done. And maybe one can push a little bit forward the choice, but at a certain point you have to decide if you want to do what you like or you want to do what is bringing you what you want. More free time, more money, whatever. And as I said, one doesn't need to be to feel guilty for this choice, but has to be honest to himself or herself. Otherwise, will be unhappy for the rest of their life.
Very true. Thank you. So maybe we can open up for questions if anybody is volunteering. And I can repeat just for the sake and purpose of the podcasting. Any questions?
I have a question. How is the ESA positioned against other space agencies in the world?
So the question is how ESA is positioned itself against other agencies.
Well, we have probably less money in terms of contributions received by our member states, at least with respect to NASA, for example. I cannot judge with respect to China as they're very powerful and state-driven, and we don't have visibility. But one thing has been noticed in the last 20 years in terms of benchmarking is that we are among those most advanced, being capable, despite the thick political layer we also have, to make the most, so to bring more results with the limited resources we have. And it's very constraining what we have in terms of arrangement that we have 27 stakeholders. And it's difficult because you have to find political decision strategies, technical solutions, projects that can make all of them happy. And there are countries that are very different. You cannot say that Germany is the same than Bulgaria or Spain is the same as Sweden. So this is the challenge. On the other hand, I think we really do good with all of these constraints we have. I mean, I can't say that we are better than others, but for sure we work very well at the same level.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your insights. You talked about the goal of sustainability and how you're working on that. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the collaboration on that with all the other agencies like NASA, SpaceX, probably many more, knowing how difficult it is? I mean, if we look at the pollution and what we're doing in Europe, but what is happening in China or in India, we know how difficult it is. What can we learn from that, from space?
Space has always been a sort of safe place in terms of us, the community. So until before the Ukrainian-Russian war, even if we were very different, we were really working always together without restriction. Now, okay, that war has created some restrictions, but still we try to remain a technical community somehow. And this is creating a bond among people and experts that at least emotionally still allow us to feel all at the same level, all in, to put us in the better position to work together. Now, we have collaborations among agencies. We have collaboration with among agencies and terrestrial institution, organization like, I don't know, civil aviation or atomic energy authorities, etc., and with industry. So for us, it's very normal to do this. With industry, it's the same that you do. We have supply chains, etc. I was last week in a conference, which is also very inspiring, sounds like science fiction, is in orbit servicing, assembling, manufacturing, so building things in orbit. And I was invited at a round table on legal framework. So if you want, very close to what you're asking. And the topic was on sustainability. And we have a sort of, again, voluntary legal framework, so not obliging anybody to do anything, but it's a sort of paper that puts at the same table was myself, someone from NASA, someone from JAXA, from the UK Space Agency was organizing the event, and so on and so forth, and a number of industries. The conclusions there were, we are becoming more and more aware of the sustainability threat. For us, is the debris. For you, is the normal things we see, pollution, etc. We still want to maintain adhesion to this type of regulation and recommendations on a voluntary basis, because we think that otherwise we would enter into such a type of political difficulty that would not be manageable with our limited resources. But we try with these long and regular discussions to understand the other counterparts' issues and problems. And we see that this is slowly but improvingly bringing results. So we, at every meeting, we identify maybe new threat, and we say, well, what could this result in terms of new requirements, for example, for developing a new project? And of course, nobody wants to create so tough requirements, regulations for which the solution is, okay, then I abort the project. Because then we don't do the things, we don't create richness and wealth, and technology and whatever is the product. So we have to leverage upon the reciprocal interest in overcoming the problems. And of course, we also have to fight, but this is less and less, the culture of denying the problem. This is, of course, but I think even on terrestrial application, situations we're not in the situation of 20 years ago, where there were countries that, for good reasons maybe, were simply saying, okay, this is not a problem for me.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Have you ever been into space?
Almost. No, when I was still at university, I participated into the first parabolic flight competition open to students. So where you are in an airplane, which is very similar to the airline plane, and they fly between 10 and 11 kilometers or 9 and 10, I don't remember. And there you simulate the absence of gravity. So you have 30 seconds and then down to 2 Gs and so on and so forth. And a few years later, I tried to become an astronaut. I was in the top 10, but then false positive in one of my medical examinations blocked me. My husband says that it's not a false positive, but okay. So in the end, no, I couldn't become an astronaut, but I had that dream.
Okay. What was the most striking experience you had there?
When you are in this type of selections, also for the parabolic flight competition, which is something more down to earth, if you want, you find yourself in a very small community of people forgetting about the risk to fly, forgetting about anything in an almost irrational way, because you know that, for example, if you go into space, you have problems of radiation effect on your health and so on and so forth. But their really passion is something that drives you mad, and then you just see that one as your only scope.
Beautiful. If there are no more questions, I just wanted to conclude with a powerful quote, actually thinking about astronaut, from Samantha Cristoforetti, that beautifully bridge space and Earth. And for those who doesn't know Samantha, she's the first Italian woman in space, obviously from the European Space Agency. And she holds the record for the longest uninterrupted space flight by the European astronaut of 199 days in space. And she says, I call for proposal and on impactful biodiversity and ecosystem restoration works across the globe that is visible from space, that I could highlight the value of nature and the importance of the protecting biodiversity during my mission. And I think this quote actually really underscores how sustainability is obviously an integral event in space mission, but also in Earth, and really link back to the One Vision sustainability program here in HOYA Vision Care that can really care about, obviously, not only the Earth alone, but also the universal responsibility, even from the orbit, I would say. So with that being said, I wanted to thank you, Monica, for the very passionate and inspirational session. I think that everybody enjoyed here today, and see you soon.